A family supper devolved into a full-blown confrontation when the mother-in-law produced a stack of bills, announcing, "Son, here are the statements for the utilities, amounting to $70,000 over 6 months." Her gaze was accusatory, fixed squarely on her daughter-in-law. Her son immediately defended his mother, grabbing his wife by the neck and yelling, "Are you out of your mind? Why aren't you paying for your mother? Bring the money." But the woman didn't falter. Hello, dear listeners. I'm delighted to welcome you to my channel. I'm presenting a new captivating story. Enjoy listening. Marina fumbled for her keys in her purse, pausing at the doorway. Loud voices emanated from within. Her mother-in-law, Tamara Vladimirovna, explaining something to her son with the tone usually reserved for the exceptionally slow-witted. Marina sighed and pushed the door open. 3 years ago, when she and Dennis had just married, she still harbored hopes that things would improve, that her mother-in-law would adjust, that their relationship would warm up. The naive Tamara Vladimirovna lived in her own 2-room apartment across town, yet she visited their place 3 times a week, always unannounced, always with keys Dennis himself had given her. "A mother needs access in the first month of marriage, in case anything happens," he'd explained. Marina had remained silent then. She'd remained silent a lot during that first year. Her mother-in-law sat in the kitchen, papers spread before her. Dennis stood nearby, frowning, calculating something on his phone. Marina walked past, kicking off her heels, but Tamara Vladimirovna called her over in an imperious tone. "Marina, come here. We need to talk." It was always like this. "We need to talk" meant her mother-in-law was about to demand something, and Dennis would silently agree. Marina returned to the kitchen, leaning against the doorframe. "Sit down," her mother-in-law gestured to a chair. "I'll stand." Tamara Vladimirovna pursed her lips. She had always disliked it when Marina displayed even the slightest independence. "As you wish. I wanted to discuss a financial matter." A financial matter, as if they were discussing a business contract, not their household budget. Marina worked as an accountant at a small company, earning $48,000. Dennis was a delivery driver, earning slightly over $50,000. They rented a 1-room apartment for $25,000. Another $12,000 or so went to utilities, and the rest for food, clothing, and transportation. They lived modestly but without debt. Tamara Vladimirovna received a pension of about $25,000. She also worked part-time at the library, plus she rented out her garage for $7,000. Quite comfortable for a single woman. Yet her mother-in-law possessed a peculiar knack for always needing something. One day, it was insufficient funds for medication. The next, a broken refrigerator, or a new fur coat was required. "I was doing some calculations," Tamara Vladimirovna began, tapping a pen against her papers. "You rent an apartment for $25,000. That's irrational. You're living in someone else's space. Your money is going to waste." "And what do you propose?" Marina asked. "I propose we move in together. I have 2 rooms. It will be enough for you. You'll pay me $20,000. That's less than you're paying now. Plus, you'll save on utilities, and I'll receive some assistance." Dennis remained silent, staring at his phone. Marina looked at him, not expecting him to say a word, but he merely shrugged. "Dennis, are you serious?" Marina couldn't hold back. "Mom, we'll think about it," he mumbled. "What's there to think about?" his mother exclaimed. "I'm family. A family should stick together." Marina turned and left the kitchen. She wasn't going to argue at that moment. Over 3 years, she had learned one simple truth. Tamara Vladimirovna would not relent until she got her way, and Dennis always helped her achieve it. For 2 weeks, her mother-in-law applied pressure, calling 10 times a day, arriving with new calculations, lamenting her health, hinting that she would soon be all alone. Dennis would listen, nod, and then in the evenings, try to persuade Marina. "What's the big deal? She's my mother. It's hard for her to be alone." "Hard? She has a pension, a part-time job, and rents out her garage. Dennis, She just wants to control us. Don't be ridiculous, it's about saving money. There won't be any savings. She'll find something to spend it on anyway. But Marina understood she had already lost, even before agreeing, because Dennis had one unshakable rule. Mother is always right. No matter how much Marina argued or presented her case, he would invariably side with Tamara Vladimirovna. A month later, they packed their belongings and moved in. Initially, it was tolerable. Tamara Vladimirovna even made an effort to maintain a distance, not prying with questions. Marina and Dennis occupied the larger room, while her mother-in-law stayed in her own. It seemed each had their own space and interests. But after just a week, the petty annoyances began. Tamara Vladimirovna would enter their room without knocking, checking if they had dusted or made their bed. She would make remarks about Marina's cooking, her attire, and her speech. "Dennis, tell her that soup needs to be made with meat broth, not these cubes," her mother-in-law would complain. "You're a man, you need proper nutrition." Dennis remained silent. Marina grew angry but also kept quiet. She worked until 6, returning home tired, only to face criticism and lectures. Her mother-in-law, meanwhile, was home almost constantly. Her part-time job at the library felt more like a formality. About 2 months later, Tamara Vladimirovna announced that the utility bills had increased. Now, she declared, they needed to pay $25,000 instead of $20,000. Marina was indignant. "We agreed on $20,000. We agreed when the tariffs were different. Everything has become more expensive. Do you think I should pay the difference out of my own pocket?" Dennis immediately agreed. Marina gritted her teeth and paid. But something inside her snapped. She realized she had fallen into a trap with no apparent escape. Moving back out was out of the question. Dennis would never agree. He now spent every evening with his mother in the kitchen, discussing news, laughing at her jokes. Marina remained alone in their room. One evening, Tamara Vladimirovna announced they needed a new television. The old one, she claimed, was completely broken and couldn't pick up channels. "I found one for $42,000. We'll split the cost equally." "Equally?" Marina repeated. "Meaning Dennis and I pay $21,000? And what's wrong with that? You'll be watching it, too." "We don't watch television." "So what? It's communal property. It's in the apartment." Dennis supported his mother. Marina paid again. The television was enormous and hung in the living room. Marina never went in there. Then came other expenses. Her mother-in-law needed to visit her dacha, or take a friend to the hospital, or some other need would arise. Each time, Tamara Vladimirovna would approach her son, who would then turn to Marina. "Your paycheck just came in. Give Mom a couple of $1,000. Marina would give it, because refusing meant igniting an argument, enduring reproaches, and seeing Dennis look at her with disappointment. 6 months later, Marina tallied up her expenses. It turned out that solely on her mother-in-law over that period, she had spent over $100,000. That was $25,000 monthly for the apartment, plus the television, plus constant requests for loans that were never repaid. Marina lost weight, became gaunt, and lay awake at night, replaying the same thought over and over. How had she ended up in such a life? Dennis didn't notice. He was content. His mother was nearby, his wife was obedient, everything was peaceful. Sometimes he tried to embrace Marina, but she pulled away. Intimacy under these circumstances felt like a mockery. And then her mother-in-law's health problems began. Tamara Vladimirovna constantly complained of high blood pressure, heart issues, and joint pain. Doctors found nothing serious, but she stocked up on medication in packages. Dennis dutifully brought money for the pills. Marina no longer argued. She simply waited for something. She knew not what. And then, one evening, she returned from work to find Dennis and Tamara Vladimirovna at home, both wearing expressions as if some terrible event had occurred. Her mother-in-law waited until Marina had taken off her shoes, then commanded, "Marina, come here," immediately. She went to the kitchen. Tamara Vladimirovna sat at the table, a stack of bills before her. Dennis stood nearby, as gloomy as a thundercloud. Look at this, $70,000 for utilities accumulated over 6 months. The mother-in-law jabbed a finger at the statements. Marina looked at the papers in silence. $70,000 for 6 months, meaning $11,000 to $12,000 per month. She slowly raised her eyes to her mother-in-law. And? And what? Tamara Vladimirovna snapped. We agreed you would cover the utilities. I gave you the apartment and you pay for electricity, water, gas. Marina frowned. We agreed to pay you $25,000 a month. That included rent and utilities. That's not true at all, her mother-in-law cut her off. 25 is for the apartment, and utilities are separate. Did you think I was going to pay for you myself? Marina felt a surge of anger. She distinctly remembered the conversation. Tamara Vladimirovna had promised that 20, then 25 was the all-inclusive price. But arguing now was pointless. Her mother-in-law would twist her words anyway, and Dennis would believe her. Dennis stepped forward, his face red, a vein throbbing on his forehead. He grabbed Marina's shoulder, not painfully, but sharply, and yelled, Are you out of your mind? Why aren't you paying your mother? Bring the money. Marina froze. He had never laid a hand on her. He had yelled, yes, accused her, yes, but it had never come to this. She looked into his eyes and suddenly understood this was the end of everything, the marriage, her patience, her hope. She slowly pulled her shoulder free, looked at her mother-in-law, then at her husband, and calmly, very calmly said, All right, I'll get the money right now. Dennis stepped back. Her mother-in-law nodded in satisfaction. Marina went to their room, retrieved a folder of documents from the closet, returned to the kitchen, and placed a printout on the table. Here's a statement from my bank. Every month, I transferred $25,000 to your account. Tamara Vladimirovna, for 6 consecutive months, that's $150,000. Here are the dates and the account number. Her mother-in-law turned pale. Dennis snatched the paper, staring at the figures. But that's for the apartment. Tamara Vladimirovna stammered. That's for everything. You yourself said the utilities were included. I even saved a voice message. Would you like to hear it? Marina took out her phone and played the recording. Her mother-in-law's voice was clear, without any distortion. $25,000 a month, and you don't have to worry about anything. Everything's included, the apartment and the utilities. Silence descended. Tamara Vladimirovna opened and closed her mouth like a fish out of water. Dennis looked at his mother, then at his wife. Mom, you said... I don't remember, her mother-in-law squeaked. She made it all up, faked it. Marina let out a laugh, a loud, almost hysterical sound. Faked a voice message? Seriously? Are you going to tell me I'm a hacker next? Tamara Vladimirovna jumped up, grabbing the bills. There's still a debt. Someone has to pay. You, Marina replied calmly, because these bills are in your name. This is your apartment, your utilities. Dennis and I aren't even registered here. I checked. The mother-in-law sank into the chair. Dennis stood frozen, unable to utter a word. Marina put the documents back into the folder. Her hands were steady. A strange calm washed over her, the kind that comes when a decision has finally been made. I'm moving out tomorrow, she said. I'll take my things. Dennis, you can stay here with Mom. It's more convenient for you. Marina, wait, Dennis began, but she raised her hand. No, that's it. I'm done. She walked into their room, closed the door, sat on the bed, and for the first time in a long time, allowed herself to relax. Voices could be heard from beyond the wall. Her mother-in-law was lamenting something, and Dennis was trying to calm her, but Marina no longer listened. The next day, she truly packed her belongings. Dennis tried to stop her, begging, promising to fix everything. Marina silently placed clothes into her bag. Tamara Vladimirovna demonstratively locked herself in her room. You'll regret this, Dennis said as a parting shot. You won't survive on your own. Marina turned. You know what's funny? I've been alone for the last 6 months." She rented a small studio for $18,000. It was cramped, but it was her own space. No one entered without knocking. No one monitored her every step. For the first week, she simply came home from work and sat in silence. It was bliss. Dennis Tommen. Dennis called for a couple more weeks. At first, he asked her to return, then accused her of selfishness, then asked again. Marina blocked his number and filed for divorce. The process was swift. They had no shared property and no children. 3 months later, she chanced upon Dennis in a supermarket. He looked thinner, gaunt, standing at the checkout with a basket full of junk food, chips, crackers, beer. He saw Marina and looked flustered. "Hi." "Hi." An awkward pause. "How are you?" he asked. "Fine. Listen, I'm sorry about that evening. I shouldn't have." "Forget it," Marina interrupted. "It doesn't matter anymore." He nodded, wanting to add something, but she walked past. The checkout line was already forming, and that evening Marina received a message from Dennis's former colleague. They occasionally kept in touch, and she was aware of the divorce. "Hey, are you aware Dennis got fired? His boss got fed up. He was rude and quit. Now he's jobless. And his mom, they say she moved in with a friend's son. She couldn't afford the utilities. She rented out the apartment to some students. Dennis is crashing at friends' places." Marina read it and chuckled. She felt no malice, only a slight sadness. Things could have been different if Dennis had ever once sided with her, if Tamara Vladimirovna hadn't been so greedy and calculating, but what was done was done. A year passed. Marina completed a course, moved to another company with a salary of $65,000. She rented a larger apartment, a one-bedroom in a new building. She got a cat. On weekends, she met with friends, went to the movies, read books. One day, Dennis messaged her again. A long message, full of remorse and requests for forgiveness. He had found work as a security guard and was renting a room. His mother no longer bothered him. She was too preoccupied with herself. He understood how wrong he had been. Maybe they could try again? Marina read and thought, recalling how he had grabbed her shoulder, how he had yelled demanding money, how he had never stood up for her, how he had chosen his mother again and again until Marina broke. She deleted the message without replying, put her phone away, and poured herself some tea. The cat jumped onto her lap and purred. Outside, snow was falling, soft and slow. Marina picked up a book from the table that she had long wanted to finish and settled comfortably. The apartment was warm and quiet. No unfamiliar voices, no complaints, no expectations. Just her, the cat, and the peaceful rustle of pages.